So I'm introducing Tim, and Tim, you can just share a little bit about yourself, your organization, and where you're from and what you do.
Great. Okay, everyone, my name's Tim Baalman. I live down in Northwest Kansas, up in the northwest corner, and I've been certified organic for 10 years. And I'll just give you a little idea. Out here, I just grow winter wheat, corn, yellow peas, um, soybeans, oats, stuff like that. Half of it's row crop, half of it's just small grains. I've been became the president of the Central Plains Organic Farmers Association, which is a marketing co-op that marketed organic grain. So 10 years ago, when I decided to become an organic farmer, I needed a place to sell my grain. So I made a phone call. They were called Kansas Organic Producers at the time, and they helped me start selling grain. I had no idea what I was doing. Typical of, first time guy. I just knew I wanted to be a part of this. And so they were looking for people to step in and be a part of it. So I raised my hand at a meeting once, and now I'm the president of the board. Since I started, we have, changed things a little bit. We've had the older generation step down and some new guys step in. So it's been really good. For everyone, Steve Boyda is also a board member with me, and those of you who don't know him. And we've been working together to try to get this entity up and running and becoming better. But they're very similar. Our beginnings are very similar to your organization. We were looking at advocating young people who wanted to become organic farmers. We would essentially, somebody would step in and provide advice and guidance. And then obviously, probably one of the most important parts was a market to sell their grain. And that's where the marketing came in. And so in the last 3 years or so, we've really focused more on trying to get our marketing improved, really improve that, get more people involved, and then just see where it goes from there. So that's where we are right now. We market all different types of organic grains, typically the easy ones, the commodity type ones like corn or feed grain, corn, soybeans, grain sorghum, stuff like that. Of course, those are Kansas crops. But we also market organic wheat, which is a big crop in Kansas. And so we wanted to look for people who are very active and could get into multiple markets. So that's what we've done. Member-wise, I would say, and don't quote me on this, I'll probably be wrong, Steve. I think we're around 40 members who are actively selling grain. They range anywhere from 100 acres to 3,000 acres, all different types. And the part we have in common is we just sell our grain to this organization. Right now, we got 2 full-time marketers. We call them marketers, essentially guys who go out and sell grain for us. We basically hire them to find markets for us. Sometimes it works great. Sometimes, they have to work at it. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to go find a market you've never even heard of, and they'll get you lined up for sales, which is real important when you need paid. So that's kind of the Central Plains Organic Farmers Association. Now, as of late, we decided to go ahead and branch out and include more growers. There seems to be interest in different areas for somebody to represent them in the marketplace. So that's kind of where we started looking at going into northern states, mainly the wheat states. Wheat was the one organic crop that everybody struggled at marketing down here. And so we thought, well, let's see if there are people up there that need, a marketer, somebody to advocate for them in the market. So we've gotten grain licenses in Montana. I think we are within a week of getting our grain license in South Dakota, or 2 weeks, something like that. We're just waiting on some paperwork. And so we're going to be moving in that direction and trying to meet with growers who need this service. You know what I mean? We're not here. Essentially, we're a nonprofit. Can you believe that? Uh, we just want to provide a service, and it seems like the staff, our two marketers and our business manager, everybody works as a team. They meet once a week, and they're always looking out for the best interests of the growers, which is really great. Part of being on the board, it's a small group, so we actually participate in all this as well and provide guidance and leadership. And it seems to be working very well. We've been very successful. Total sales in the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years that I've been watching, we're in that $7 to $8 million in sales. Most of that being organic winter wheat, from the growers down here in Kansas, mainly on the western part, but we sell wheat from growers all over Kansas. I mean, it could be the eastern side in Lawrence. Steve lives in Marysville, all the way out west where we grow the majority of our winter wheat. And we're looking for a high protein market. It's hard. I've got mills in Colorado that are just 250 miles away, and to try and get a business deal with them is like herding cats. It just never happens. They've got their special growers, and then when they need it, they'll call you. When they don't, it's crickets. So ever since we've been using our current marketers, we've accessed both mills in Colorado with sales of producers, not necessarily me, but other producers in the group. And so we feel like it's successful, and we're trying to improve it. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of what our organization is and what it's about. We do have a website, believe it or not. So there's a start there. The idea of somebody going up and getting wheat sold, I understand that sounds easier said than done. But as of right now, I'm not a big tech guy, so I'm kind of old-fashioned. Steve's a little more ahead of me, but that's kind of where to start. Maybe word of mouth. People could check the website if they have interest at this point. Sometimes, usually, the first time is just take a few loads of grain and sell it and see what happens. I think we've already had sales in Montana already, just because our marketer, has experience in that area and knew of buyers looking for stuff at the time. So it's happening now, and that's how it is. You never know when things are going to happen. But right now, like I said, we're probably check us up on the web. I think there's a phone number for both of our marketers. And essentially, you just call them and talk to them. It's crazy. It's $75, I think, for a membership. So as soon as
And
you sell grain,
okay.
membership just comes out of a sales transaction.
Okay. Is that like a one-time membership fee? Do we pay that every year?
Right. And I think it's going up to 150. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah, at the end of the year it'll be 150, and that's because we haven't raised our dues in nearly
It's
10 years.
forever.
And that's just a yearly fee that comes out of your first sale through the co-op.
Basically, so our marketers are going to go out and market. They essentially do what you're saying. They're supposed to market everything. If a grower has a rotation, they're supposed to market all of it if they can, the best they
Mhm.
can. We all know, certain buyers have presence in different areas, but they're going to be your advocate. So, every now and then I grow white Milo. White Milo is not something you hear about much. It's a food. It's for food grade, like they grind it into Milo or stuff. And so I just asked the marketer to go get my white Milo sold. We send in
Mhm.
samples. Part of it is, get a sample in, and then we get everything graded. We pay for all that, and then all that information is available for the marketers to use when they approach buyers. Um, Part of it is knowing who buys such products. I mean, some of them. One of our older ones he's about 65, but he's been trading organic grains for 20 some years. For different companies, and he knows who buys what, and so he brings a lot of experience but basically they work. They'll go if they can't find anybody to buy it, they'll start calling and asking around. And so essentially they're just going to be your representative in the market. Where when you're out working, you don't have time to be trying to get your products sold and trying to find who the buyers are, where they are. Another service is just be arranging freight and stuff like that. And for guys that don't have trucks close or don't have connections,
Right.
that can be a benefit. So that's kind of, I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but we just allow them to go after it and find sales. And a lot of times it happens. It just happens. They talk to somebody has interest, and the next thing you know, we're selling those products. So, right. The imports. Oh, very, very popular topic these days. A lot of buyers are very interested in locally grown grain. Quite a few of them are, believe it or not. The big companies, the smaller companies. It seems like some of the integrated meat producers are looking for organic feed at the cheapest price, and that's what you're talking about. Getting organic feed grain in like corn and soy. From the Baltic area. That's been happening. It happened and it stopped and then it started back up again. And as long as our US dollar is high, they have a market to sell into. And as far as us as a group, Steve could speak more to this than me. We don't go out and engage rule-making bodies or enforcement bodies. I know he has relationship with people that kind of do, but as far as the problem goes, everyone needs to speak out against it as the best they can. Right now, we've been able to get our grain sold, which is important, but our prices are lower because the exact same thing you're talking about. So, as a group, I'll let Steve talk about. I think O Farm tends to engage in that, which is kind of a group we're associated with.
Yeah, O Farm, that's been one of their main concerns for the last half of a decade. But the main cause of that is you have the end users that are trying to get the cheapest possible inputs that they can, and until the consumer demands that it's domestic, they're going to continue doing it. Us as producers, we can yell and scream and jump up and down, but it's the consumer that's going to drive who they get their inputs from. So I would just encourage you to reach out to the consumer, the end users, and just explain domestic tends to be a lot better, and you know where it's coming from. It's not loaded up on a ship with 500 other thousand bushels, and you have no way to trace it back. I mean, there's no traceability at all compared to what we have here domestically.
Good question. We essentially just have a commission on all sales. It's typically around 5% of the sale, and that typically covers all the expenses for transactions and issuing payment. So every year we evaluate, the process, make sure we're competitive, and then we've been making money a little bit. Like I said, we're nonprofit, so we're not here to be profitable. We're not trying to, look for sales and stuff always. It's more of a quality of a sale and a relationship than it is volume of sales and profits. And so far, that's served us well. Most of the producers in our organization didn't get any of those. Part of it is, I think, the two gentlemen we hired to fill the roles, they kind of know a lot about the last 20 years of organic grain sales, and they have a lot of experience and they know who's who. I think they weren't really interested in dealing. I think you're talking about pipeline, is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, that was pipeline, and I think there was another one maybe last year or the year before that a lot of
Oh
some
yeah,
people
rural
high and dry.
processing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just odd that nobody, yes, there we just didn't have any sales with those folks. Maybe that's because of our organization. They don't want to deal with us because we'll sniff them out real quick or whatever. Or they do advocate for the growers. I think if they're suspicious of somebody not paying, they're gonna monitor it, or they won't even make the sale to begin with. I know they're really good about that. There's always bad apples everywhere, but as soon as it's kind of part of our weekly meeting with the small group is we discuss payment. If buyers aren't making payments or they're slowing down, it's noted, and we keep track of all that. We've also been successful long enough. We have enough reserves that we can typically keep farmers paid. It used to be you'd have to wait for a sale to take place, and then paperwork and transaction would take 2 weeks, a week. With the mail, we're within 30 days right now, which is nice because we weren't that way before. Organic grain's expensive, so it doesn't take very long, for the costs of the grain to add up with the checks going out. So if you're shipping 5 loads of organic wheat at $20 a bushel, that adds up really fast. But we've been able to service the growers in the last couple of years, no problem, 30 days. Winter wheat is where we've been able to utilize this model the best because there's different grades of winter wheat. And that changes, and the demand for each one of those grades changes every year based on production. Some years they want high protein wheat. Sometimes people in the north grow so much that, well, they don't want it, or they want a lower price. So we basically allow our marketers to go. We don't necessarily do forward contracts. We have done a little bit, but we don't do it very much. A lot of farmers just want to grow the product and then worry about marketing after harvest, which, it would make sense to have a forward contract. I mean, some of the specialty grains, you just about have to. We do a little bit of contracting of specialty grains through the co-op. I know some of the individual farmers themselves have their own contracts. So their real value is going out and getting winter wheat and some of those grains marketed to the multiple buyers in different areas, because everybody lives in an area that might be close to a mill or further away. They just know how to manage that. We also do organic feed grain like the corn and soybeans. And essentially they are kind of like just a broker at that point, but they know where to go with it. They know the freight. And rather than having to do that yourself, they take care of that for you. Like currently, I don't typically, if I grow organic corn for feed, I'm just going to grow it and let them market it because it's a lot. Or if they have an opportunity, they know when it's time to sign a contract or get sales prior to harvest. They kind of see the market, it's demanding it. They'll encourage growers to get those contracts done. On years where it's the other way, where the demand's going to pick up after harvest, they'll encourage everyone just to wait. Typically, I just wait.
Okay.
It's always worked for me. Not always, but it usually does.